good stuff that's happening, and we can all get back to what, all the important stuff. We need to take roll call. Ms. Becky, would you like to do
Steve
that?
Rose,
Here.
Jeff Downey,
Here.
Walter Abbott, Shannon Gatton, Steve Hickman,
Here.
Greg Randolph,
Here.
Joe Blevins,
Here.
Roger Hickey,
Here.
Shane White.
Here.
All members are present.
All right, we're going to get started. Has everybody had a chance to read over the last meeting's minutes? That's it. Okay, we need a motion to pass those minutes, if somebody would like to do that.
I'll make a motion to pass last meeting.
And second it. All in favor? Aye. And none opposed, so we have that took care of. Being that it's a new year, we need to nominate all the good stuff, the president, vice president, all that stuff. So we need to open the floor for nominations.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to just go ahead and make you the president for the next year.
Thanks, Steve, I appreciate
I mean, while you're here,
it.
I'm just doing it. You're doing a great job.
you're the head of the table, you're by the attorney, we need to go to council. Can I get a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we need a nomination for a vice president.
Who's the vice president now?
Walter.
Walter.
I'll make a motion to nominate Walt again.
Jeff, second it.
Craig seconded it.
You're gonna have to work a little harder this year though, Walt.
All right, we need to, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, none opposed? Congratulations, Walter.
Then your bylaws also call for the commission to appoint a secretary who does not have to be a member, I assume. That could be just, we did be reappointed. Becky not going to do it, I guess, right? But the bylaws do call for that as one of the functions at the first meeting of each year, and this is our first meeting this year, so.
I'll make a motion to elect Becky.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Yeah,
with all in one, so that's all.
that's sort of the housekeeping stuff.
Okay, we have some business about this property.
Yeah, but hang on a second.
Am I jumping the gun?
Well, I don't know what, I don't have it in front of me. Are we going to appoint someone to the BZA? Was that one of the
Oh,
things?
yes.
Do that.
Yeah, I didn't know if we could do
I
that before
apologize.
the council.
No, that's all right. I didn't know. I think the other thing that, in the sort of a long procedure, another sort of housekeeping matter is, in addition to the planning commission, the town has a board of zoning appeals. So if someone files for a variance or for a special exception or doesn't agree with the decision that Tim might make, they have the right to appeal his decision to a different committee, and that is the Board of Zoning Appeals. And I don't know, I've been around here for 5, 6 years now. I don't think in that time we've convened the meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. I think just because there hasn't been a reason to, and we discovered here in the last few weeks that we really don't have a full board. And there may be some matters coming up that would require that the Board of Zoning Appeals meet and act on requests. So I pointed that out to Mike Day, the council president, and the council members, and I'm informing you of that. So the way it works on the Board of Zoning Appeals is there are 5 members. 4 of them are appointed by either the council president or the town council. So they're taking care of that. But one of the 5 members is appointed by the planning commission, by the 9 of you. And that person has to be a member of the planning commission. And that person can't be the member of the planning commission that the council appoints. One of the 4 that they appoint is also a planning commission member. So one of the tasks you have tonight is to appoint one of you to be on the Board of Zoning Appeals. And it can't be whomever. Is one of you already been appointed? You have.
Yeah.
Oh, I think Mike told me that. That's right. So you're already, so you can't be considered as the appointee from the plan commission. So you need to appoint one of the members here other than Mr. Blevins. Does that make sense? That's the statutory requirement. And I don't know, like, when all of you think about whether it's something you're willing to do, like I say, we haven't had a need to meet, but we thought that there was a petition, there may be a petition filed soon for a variance, and we're gonna have a board, and it's pretty awkward when somebody needs something from the town and we don't have the committee even formed, so we're just trying to make sure that gets done too. So everybody understand what? So I think if you're inclined to do that, tonight the action would be to identify somebody other than Mr. Blevins from the plan commission who would be willing to serve, and then vote to appoint that person.
I'll make a motion on Jeff Hammond.
Since I'm an employee, I can't do it.
You can't be.
I can't, that's okay, that's enough.
That's all right, but you really can't be elected. There are restrictions, so.
Okay, all right, and that's right. Because I'm an employee appointed, I can't do it, right?
You want me to say yes, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, then, no elected or appointed official can. So, like the municipal appointees to the plan commission aren't eligible.
Oh, so that is, yeah, then I can't. Yeah, thanks anyway, Steve.
Don't be laughing, there's one of you two sitting beside me next.
Guys, I'm on 3 others, and the learning curve here, so I'm afraid I can't give it the attention. I guess we don't meet very often, but I need to learn the learning curve here first.
I think the last
We're
time.
all learning. We're all learning.
It was met, it was for Jeff Johnson, this would have been, what, 7 years ago?
It was 2011.
And it was Jeff Johnson wanted to put horses out there at his property right outside of off Hickey Road, because it's still considered town limits. And so that's how often that board meets.
And there's no meetings, it's just when
Would be
somebody
a-
is filed.
You don't have a regular monthly meeting, none of that, it's just whenever.
There really is no function of the Board of Zoning Appeals other than to hear petitions. So if someone did apply for a variance, they wanted to do something that the zoning ordinance wouldn't allow, or for a special exception, which is a use that is permitted but subject to special review, or if somebody thinks that we made an administrative decision, that would be Tim. They don't agree with some decision he made, they can appeal it. But unless someone files something and asks for some relief, there isn't anything, the Board of Zoning Appeals doesn't do anything else.
All right.
So,
All right,
see what I mean?
all right.
Well, can I ask a question? Could we introduce ourselves? Because I don't know this gentleman's name.
Absolutely.
I forgot.
Talking about you.
Oh, I'm sorry, my name's Tim Geiger.
Okay, Tim, it's hard to know.
He's our zoning administrator.
I know Joey, Roger Hickey and Shane, Steve Hickman. We know Becky and Shanda. And I'm your dad well, but I've forgotten your name. Okay, then we know what it is. Tim, are you up for it? We're making.
Well, no, Tim,
He's
Roger said
administrator.
he'd do it.
There you go, Roger's got it. I'll make a motion to elect Roger for the zoning board of appeals.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Roger, I didn't hear an aye. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
You didn't, he didn't look too excited about it, so.
but it really says this, we are kind of new and have met for the first time. It might be best to kind of explain who Tim is. The Plan Commission, as the committee for the town, is responsible for issuing building permits and doing inspections and overseeing how property is used and developed in town. That sort of day in and day out responsibility ends up being designated to what we call a building inspector or zoning administrator. We all have an idea what a building inspector is. Tim is that for Morgantown. So he is a designated agent and employee of the Plan Commission. When someone applies for a building permit, he reviews the permit application, decides whether the permit should be issued, and then as a building is constructed or improved, he does those inspections. And he also will inspect properties for the unsafe building law, although that's not the planning commission's function anymore. Tim also serves that role. So that's why he's here. He's what we call our zoning administrator.
Right, he's a
But
smart
he's the
guy.
agent out in the field, right?
Got it.
Okay. Right. I'm gonna shut up now.
You're doing a great job. So we got that took care of, but it's Roger Hickey. Thank you, Roger. Now, we could be moving
Yeah,
on?
yeah.
Okay, does everybody have this piece of paper right here? It's the, plan for the property of Mr. Deacons. Pronounce that right?
Yes, sir.
I want to be official because I'm used to calling him Dinky, so, he wants to, yeah,
Here.
I think the letter I just passed around
this one right here.
may be the exact same thing as this. I think that you're gonna find that those are about the same thing. What I did, I think, was wrote a memorandum to the planning commission members, and then I pretty much sent the same memorandum to Mr. Dinkins in the form of a letter to explain to him how the ordinance related to what he was intending to do. And so what we've had is an expression of interest. Mr. Dinkins owns a property, 420 West Washington, down here at the end of town, as you leave town on the west side. He came to a town council meeting
With a big amount.
and expressed an interest in changing the use of that property from what has been primarily used car auto sales to a recovery yard. And the town council listened for a bit and then realized, well, that's something that he needs to present either to the planning commission or the board of zoning appeals, depending on what it is he ultimately wants to do. And so I sort of said that night, well, I'll look at the zoning ordinance and see whether the use that you want to make of the property, this recovery yard, is addressed in our ordinance. So I kind of did a little research of it to see what applied, and the letter you have, the memo you have, is sort of my report on what I learned from that, and I communicated that to him. And I think to sort of set the stage on this, under the town zoning ordinance and under the Indiana code, the way sort of local zoning applies to property is if a proposed use is not listed in a zoning ordinance as a permitted use, then it's not permitted. And in other words, it's not a matter of, well, this isn't in there, so I'm allowed to do it. It's just the opposite. If it isn't in there, I'm not allowed to do it. The way certain uses get approved is by being listed in zoning ordinance as uses that the ordinance allows, and then they tend to be included in different zoning classifications. So, you don't have used car sales in a residential zoning classification. You don't tend to have apartment complexes in an industrial zoning. Part of the reason that local jurisdictions want their own zoning authority is so they can decide how they're going to divide up their town and where they're going to have certain uses permitted and where they're going to have certain uses prohibited. And so, and you can fix this if I don't say it right, but what we understood at the council meeting was that Mr. Dinkins wanted to start using the property for auto recovery, which I think is towing cars in and storing them there for a period of time. And I might also call it auto salvage. I don't see anywhere in the Morgantown zoning ordinance where that use is mentioned.
I'm ready to correct you.
Okay,
That's not what I want.
okay,
This application for permit to build a garage is for a garage and possibly a fence. In the towing business, only if you tow for the police departments, when you impound cars. For 12 years, I've been in the towing business. I haven't impounded one for 12 years. I don't want to store cars. I own a garage for my car lot. It's still open and heavy equipment. And I thought a fence would make it look a little better, but I don't want to rezone it for towing.
okay. So is that different than what you had?
Yes.
Okay.
Just a garage.
So then I guess I don't know why you're even here this evening then.
For the garage.
Or you're just asking for a permit for a garage?
Permit for the garage and
Okay.
a fence.
planning
Which
commission.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
The fence, are you wanting the fence in the front?
Oh, is that the property you're talking about?
No.
Oh,
They're talking fence all the way around.
Okay. We'll get to that one, buddy.
okay.
But the fence, being he's right off of the highway, I think that would be a problem, isn't it?
But it's just whatever the ordinance says. I don't know what the request is. I mean, the way the process works is you would submit a request for a permit, Tim would review it and decide whether or not that's something that's allowed or
Yes, I
not.
did.
So that's just something that's done, you know, in an administrative sense as a course of daily business.
Okay.
Well, can we get some clarification that we're not, look, we just want to tow and recover? We're not going to cut anything apart, we're not scrapping the wheels, tires, batteries, calibrations, anything like that. And I'm going to be honest with you, Dean, and I read your stuff. The only thing I don't like is corrugated galvanized fencing. I'd be up for anything other than, you've seen junkyards with paved out here, he had that around there. Looks good for a year or two, that's something that's going to need to be painted.
What would
And
you
that's-
suggest, as low as my lot sits, to get it up high on that?
Does it have to be that high if you're not doing it for the county and you're not towing any bids?
What's the fence for?
Pardon me?
What's the fence for?
Well, if he's gonna tow for if a cop calls, he has to have a certain fence and have it in a compound where they can't get back.
But that use is not a permitted use.
Right, and you're not looking to recover, he has said in 12 years, he hasn't
Okay.
recovered a vehicle for the county, and you're not proposing to do that.
I don't need the fence. I don't need the fence.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't have a problem with it at all. If we don't have a pile of battery, if it doesn't look like anything like you got up on Mount Nebo, then I don't have a problem. But the fence, I don't like the fence idea, because that galvanized fence, any fence would look better to me than the galvanized, corrugated looking metal 9 feet high when you drive into the entrance for a town. We've been on the town's council's butt about why we don't have, all we have is a prison issued sign up here that says Morgantown. We won't go into that, but Gospорт's got it. Other towns have it that have a lot less than we do. And the best thing we can get is something the prisoners put out from Michigan City. That's what's up there on the highway right now. That's where they came from. But that's everything.
There are fencing restrictions in the ordinance.
Right, there
That's
should be.
But I believe that applies for residential, I don't know if it applies to the commercial properties or not.
Right. But I mean, if you don't really need the fence then, if you're not gonna, then all he needs is a building permit. Tim, ball's in your court.
That's right. I mean, there's nothing that the planning commission doesn't have any function to perform with regard to a
Right.
request for a garage.
Right.
I mean, that's an application for a building permit and plans for the building and Tim's review, and if he finds it to be in order, he'll issue a permit and do the inspection. If he doesn't, he'll explain the reason why. So there's nothing for the full commission to do on this. And if you're wanting to do something that the ordinance doesn't allow, then that's where you would file a petition with the Board of Zoning Appeals and ask for some relief from the ordinance. But even if you wanted to grant it, you don't have that authority. That's why we would have the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Right.
Does that make, you understand that, right? Okay.
Okay, now what does he do? Let's just say he opens it, like he said, well, he doesn't really, if it's a big hoodoo about the fence, but what if he does want a fence because of security purposes? Is that still through Tim, or does it have to?
Yeah, but I know, as I said, I
That's
don't
fine,
know.
I mean, so
Right.
him and Tim can work that out.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's what I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
Because I could understand for security issues if he.
Yeah, me
He's
too.
working
I get that, but I think
If
a
he's
chain
working
link
on
fence
people's
was
cars
better
and
than
it's just sitting down there, they.
pure metal. I believe that a chain link fence, even 8, 9 feet high, you need to look much better. Pardon me?
Bob Wire.
With barbed wire on top?
No, that's up to you. I don't have a problem with that. A chain link fence doesn't ever need to be painted, and I know galvanizing after a while, no matter, it is galvanized and the lifespan's supposed to be pretty good, but it will get pretty rough, so. I don't have a problem with it.
Is that what the voice has? Is that galvanized?
Well, when I read your thing, I think it says galvanized pipe, or galvanized metal.
It says 9 foot high galvanized metal fence.
Yeah, and just so you
I guess
know,
voice has galvanized.
okay, because on galvanized,
Painted galvanized.
it would look like this corrugated, it would have waves in it. So it's not really, I don't think it's, would look real good there, but obviously we don't have much to discuss. How big a garage do you want to build?
40, somebody's got it, 40 by 50,
40.
attached to the office.
30 by 50.
30 by 50.
I don't see that looking bad.
And the way it's laid out in this It doesn't look like it would look bad, so,
The only place to lay it out
yeah.
Yeah.
with the sewer run through, or is that sanitary? I'm not sure.
That's sanitary.
Sanitary.
I think it's both.
Well, it's not supposed to be both. It is both.
But that property's not the flood zone, is it?
Oh.
That property's not the flood zone?
Not any longer. I couldn't get a mortgage if it was, since they opened up the funnel bridge, they took it out of the flood zone.
Okay, I was gonna say.
The banks wouldn't touch it, they did.
But I think on this, we have a zoning ordinance that will say, like a garage is an accessory building to the principal use of auto sales. It will say how big it can be. It'll say what setback from the property lines have to be preserved. It may say, it'll say how tall it can be. I mean, there are development standards that have already been adopted in the ordinance, and those just will be applied to whatever it is you want to do. But it doesn't require an approval from you, and like I say, you can't grant permission that is not consistent
Right, but
with.
if you said that it is only, it is set up now as the ordinance stands, that it's just for used car sales, we are gonna have to do something if he wants to go to towing and recovery.
He would have to get a variance from, or have the or change the zoning ordinance, right?
Right, in order to get the towing and recovery.
Right.
We're gonna have to make a decision, and then can we put an inclusion in there, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not digging anybody cutting things up with a torch and then piles.
But before it ever-
And I don't think you're going to.
Before we ever get to that point, he would have to file a petition, he would have to give notice to the neighbors, he would have to post notice in the paper, we'd have to have a public hearing. And none of that's been done, and I think you're saying you're not doing that now anyway.
You're not changing anything.
I just want to build a garage, I hear. Okay.
Sounds good.
And so we already have development standards that tell us what that requires. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, let's lay it out.
Can I ask how long it takes to get the application approved?
For
Is that
building
the same
permit.
one you just turned in not too long ago? Okay. I need a plot plan with that. That's the only thing I was needing in that application. Shows where your building's gonna go, where your property lines are and stuff. Do you have that?
I'll say sugar really got it.
Well, that's not a plot plan. That was just kind of, I don't remember what it was, but it's not a plot plan. So,
On these 10, or is that not exactly which one?
that's not it.
Okay, I just trying to be open.
No, that's not, yeah. So I will leave that.
Okay.
Okay.
Where do I get that? Courthouse?
Generally, they don't have it at the courthouse. It's either something you get with the property when you purchase it through the mortgage company.
From the surveyor?
Yeah.
Sure. I've got it.
Okay.
There is there's a fencing issue over here, is what I've been told.
Yeah, Mulberry, get the address.
120 East Mulberry.
120 East Mulberry. It was brought to my attention that there was a fence being put up, and it was going in the front yard. Now, we allow fences, but I guess apparently not in the front yard, and it has to be addressed by the board as an architectural type viewing, I guess, of the fence. It is a chain link fence. I was over there and looked at it. So I guess it's up to you guys as far as whether or not you allow it to go in the front yard. So,
Well, what is the decision that you're saying?
well, I guess, I don't know what the ordinance actually reads like that, so.
It says, I believe it says 4 foot tall and decorative, and then it had to be approved by the planning commission to go in the front yard.
Okay.
So you sent me the ordinance, I don't have my
Right.
phone to pull it up in my emails, because I left it with my kids.
And this thing just crashed. I
You
don't,
got that,
I know I sent it to you.
right here, and I found it.
Yeah.
I remember reading it, but this was a while ago.
Well, we did this just in the last couple of weeks, but somehow or another, this thing just.
So just so I can, because that kind of confuses me, so literally, I get the thing about putting a fence up, we've got an ordinance where you can't put in your front yard, because typically most people that have animals, they want chain link fence all the way around the property.
See, it kind of upsets, I understand ordinance is ordinance, but we went to the town hall and asked if we needed a building permit and what was acceptable and what wasn't. And we was told as long as it wasn't, had to be 5 foot inside your property line with your adjacent neighbor, unless your neighbor approved. And I believe it said it couldn't be over 5 foot high. And I made sure of that before I went out and purchased my fence for $3,000. It's a 5 foot chain link fence. I've already got all of those concreted down the sidewalk.
And I was told I did not have to file a permit. I specifically went in to ask.
And I did everything I was
Oh,
supposed to. I did
you
all
got
that
part
I
of
did,
it.
I did. So now if I can't have a fence, I don't do much else. 3 plans after I went to town and told me to
Maybe
say,
I'll grab my phone and find that email.
Okay, I'll try and find it.
I'll know what it said.
That's why I'm trying to figure out, what's that on that?
Yeah, what's your answer?
Mulberry, right on Park Street, Mulberry, across from King James Church.
If you go this way, turn by the funeral home, that's Mulberry.
Across from the one that just tore down
Yeah.
on the corner?
Oh, where the fence is already on the west side of the house.
Is that a Smith's Lake?
Yeah, move further. Move west.
We got a lot of fences to move in this town. A lot of it says on.
Herschel Smith.
Yeah, that's okay.
Before I purchased the fence, I tried to
I
make
know
sure I
it's
was
actually
compliant.
keep hearing, but we bought it from Randolph.
Permission from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone got there.
I know what, yeah, Greg told that too.
What is the purpose of the fence? Animals?
Dogs. And we plan on, they haven't checked into it, but we're planning on putting an above ground pool in the lot adjacent.
The
Next
biggest
year.
issue is the dogs. We have 2 large dogs. I want my dogs in my yard, and I don't want, no offense to anybody here, I don't want your dogs in my yard, because my dogs are not pet friendly. So if I take my dogs out on a leash, I have to scan and make sure that there's no other pets around. Sometimes I'm taking them out at 6 a.m. and it's dark. I mean, I want to be able to open my door and safely let my dogs out, and know that I can open my door and safely let my dogs in, and I don't have any other animals coming in or out of my house or my property. I mean, it
Right,
really
I
is
think
a
the other point
safety
is
issue.
if you are gonna have a pool, then yes, there's a liability there, and I would think that the fence would be a no-brainer to make sure that neighbor kids don't wander over and out in your pool in your house, so.
If the ordinance states no accessory building or structure shall be prohibited in any front yard area except for lawn ornaments, outdoor lights, and other such items in which are customarily are located in the front yard area. Antennas shall not be located in the front yard in any district. Fences in front yards shall be decorative and can only be installed after a review and approval of the design by the planning commission. Up to a 6 foot high fence is permitted, thank you, in a rear or side yard. Barbed and or razor wire is prohibited. So you couldn't razor wire your fence.
No question, that lot next to me is a total separate lot. Where would you determine front and rear yards at? Facing the street, or how far back do I have to bring it?
Oh, I don't know.
If it's concrete.
There's no, I don't think there's an ordinance.
Right, and I believe that's where Tim
Jason
got,
Law.
that it needed to be.
There's some decorative little caps on the top of the posts.
It will be a hell of a sign.
I like our road.
Yeah, that was what I had sent to Becky when this issue came up, what she just read. So fences up to 6 foot high are permitted in the rear yard from the front yard back. But anything in the front yard would have to be deemed to be decorative, and I don't know that we have a definition in the ordinance for what that is. And so that's why.
Can you put little decorative caps on top of the posts?
I'll paint the red to match the porch.
There you go.
I got a welder, I can put eagles or anything you want out there.
Well, I think, of course, this ordinance was written in 1989, and, you know, one of the problems that we have had when issues have come up is the ordinance is kind of old and outdated, and we tried a few years ago to update it, and that didn't go very well because the person we hired did a very good job, but we're stuck with it. Whether anybody likes the whole thing or any part of it, that is the current local rule. And I think the whole idea about fences in front yards, particularly when you have a main street like you have in Morgantown, is is just is what it looks like to have a farm-style fence or a chain link fence that can come out in front of the house and go out to the sidewalk or the front of the yard. I mean, it's just aesthetics. I think the reason that's in the ordinance, whoever wrote the ordinance and when the council adopted it in '89, they thought that just didn't look nice. And so that's the rule. And the only way that you can get relief from that rule is what we were saying sort of in the abstract a while ago, would be to ask for a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals to allow you to have a fence in the front yard that is not deemed to be a decorative fence. And if you're talking about a chain link fence, what I envision that to mean is sort of like a wrought iron style, fence that would be more of a vertical.
Right, wrought iron would be considered ornamental.
Yeah.
Ornamental metal.
And so,
Fence.
and so if it's a continuation of a chain link fence out into the front yard, I don't think the ordinance, based on what Becky just read, which is the same thing I think, I don't think that's what the ordinance permits. And so if that's what you're attempting to do, I think that does require a variance. Now, the one unique rule here is it's up to the Plan Commission to decide whether it's decorative or not. And I don't know whether that's something that, based on the description that you've heard, is something that you...
It can be very easily, because I don't do fence, but I do a lot of rail. If it's painted black, it could be considered, as you go to some of these very high-end child cares down in Bloomington. I know some other companies that just put some in. If the fence is painted black or it is powder coated in some different color, those people are going to call it decorative.
Would there be another reason they don't do the front yard because of sidewalks, people walking and animals approaching people on the sidewalk and scare them, or would that be another issue that
It could be.
maybe they don't do the front yards because of sidewalks and people would,
Possibly emergency.
I don't see a difference between my yard and the neighbor's yard behind me because his chain link fence goes right along the street and around the front of his house, I believe.
his goes around in front of the house.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. I mean, his isn't 5 foot tall.
No, he's doesn't go.
No, it goes right to
It's just on the side.
It goes right to the side of his house.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I don't know of any house in town that has anything in the front yard.
But yours is.
Well, we can drive around this town
now,
and find
right?
it. Doesn't
Yeah.
I'm sure we could. I just right off.
But,
Well, there's one right across from our house, so.
Okay. With the fence in front yard.
It's a 4-foot chain link fence with wooden posts, so, but at least with him,
Chain link with wooden posts.
yeah.
That's it.
With him, it's, at least, we just drove by it. It's got actual chain link post and, so to me, it looks okay.
Being a chain link too also obstruct view, if you're in a lot, that's obstruct view from turning left or right too. That's an issue too.
Yes.
Well, I was just gonna throw this out, the person who complained and actually brought it to the town's attention does not even live over there. So it's not like any neighbors
But
complain.
we're wandering away from,
Right. What it
the
is.
rule is, unless the Plan Commission deems it to be a decorative fence and approves the plan, then it's not permitted. So the only, staying within the boundaries of what you can or can't do as a Plan Commission, you could make a decision tonight by a motion and a vote to deem this to be a decorative fence and approve it, and then they can go ahead and do what they propose doing.
There was a height restriction on that too, wasn't there? 4 feet.
Well, it said in the front yard.
What it
Couldn't
doesn't,
see
it doesn't,
4 feet.
what it says about the front yard is that you have to approve the plan, or it can't, no fence can be in the front yard at all. What it says about the back and side yard is a fence up to 6 feet tall is permitted back there, and you don't have to do anything to approve that. You see what I mean?
Right.
So it isn't a height restriction on the front. What it says about the front is there's no fences.
Okay.
Unless you guys deem it to be a decorative fence and approve the plan, which you can do tonight, if you choose to. But that's the only choice you have.
If you think about the plan view of that property, there's no reason why you probably couldn't come back to where your porch comes off, your front porch, go that way, because I would consider that a side yard. And if you're 15 feet away from the sidewalk, or whatever that setback is from your front door, and took off from there.
My only issue with that is finances, because I just spent $3,000
Oh, because you already ran all the posts.
and I got all the posts, and I'd have to go buy another 52 bag, well, not 52, but however many posts. 2 bags of concrete per post or whatever to replant all my posts.
And who gave you the information that you could go ahead and do it?
We went to town hall and they told us that we didn't need no permits,
Who
so, my wife.
I went.
I mean, who told you that?
There was nothing specifically stated. I said, I want to fence my yard. So what do I need to do? And I was told, you don't need to do anything, you don't need to file permits or anything, just fence your yard. Nobody said, are you fencing your front yard or your side yard, whatever, and I didn't specifically say, I'm only fencing my front yard or
Right,
I'm
but what
fencing
I'm
my
asking
side
you
yard.
is, there's only a couple of people in that office, which one told you, this one or the other one?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, so you just got some bad information.
So,
Because
Like she
typically
said,
we
she
can't
didn't
put,
say she was
Yeah,
in front yard, and I
Right.
didn't
but you
assume, I mean, maybe
can't,
it's
but you can't
on my
put
fault.
any fence up without talking to the neighbors, am I correct? Is it
No, you're not talking to neighbors.
No, you come in 5 feet, you know.
5 feet from the property line. If you want to put it right on your property line, you have to get the neighbor's permission.
and we already spoke with those neighbors
So
and they
we
gave
have
us
their
permission.
permission with where the fence is and everybody, all of our neighbors are fine with the fence,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
My neighbor did, and I want it gone.
Yeah, the problem just entails that it's the front yard, and I didn't assume she was gonna put it in the front yard.
And before we get too distracted on that too, there aren't a lot of requests that come into town hall. There isn't a lot of building activity in town, and there are gonna be times when we're gonna get things wrong. I mean, it just happens. So, I think that what you can do as a planning commission, if you choose to, is decide that this is decorative and you approve the plan and you're going to allow it to be there. And if you don't do that, then their only choice is to remove it or to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and ask the Board of Zoning Appeals to grant them a variance so that they can stay where it is and they can have their fence.
Right, but if we change this tonight, then once he does it, we just set precedence.
No, you haven't, because you just approved the plan for their property as the ordinance contemplates. We're not changing the ordinance.
Okay.
Now, this idea of precedence, I don't worry about it as much as a lot of people do, because it gives somebody else an argument, but you always have the right to say, we considered it in that case, we believe it made sense there, we don't believe it makes sense here.
On the chain link.
You know, and whatever the reason might be, I'm not talking you in or out of anything. All I'm doing is telling what the rules are. You have certain authority and you have real limitations on your authority. And you all may think, I don't like this rule, I think it's stupid, I think fences ought to be allowed in the front yard, but the rule's the rule. And what we're not doing tonight is changing the rule. All we're doing tonight is
Determining if it's decorative.
yeah, that's the only question you really can decide is it, do you consider it to be a decorative fence and you approve the plan as they've described it? And it's either yes or no.
And just food for thought on their decisions, I think it's gonna look more ghetto and more trashy running my fence halfway through my front yard of that lot, all the way over to the side of my house, versus having a clean curb line and an easier place to, just food for thought, something to think about.
How far do you have the post away from the sidewalk now?
It runs right along the sidewalk.
It's pretty close, but
So do a lot of.
I personally think it looks good. It's not like he's bought it all and it's just laying there in his yard and growing weeds around it and all that good stuff.
It is growing up a little bit right now, but usually it's mowed and better tidy than what it is right now, because I've been working on the fence versus trying to do
So
the
there
yard
was
as much.
no setbacks in from the sidewalk required?
She just read the ordinance, there was no regulation on the setback from the sidewalk, and it's a whole process to make new ordinances, so.
But there is an ordinance that said that nothing in the front yard, so.
Right. If fences in front yards shall be decorative and can only be installed after a review and approval of the design by the plan commission.
And you said it's how high, 4 foot?
It's a 5-foot chain link fence. I got somewhat of a sketch on, got
Yeah.
how it's going on the property, or how the post planted right now.
I mean, my whole thing is, if we say it's tonight that it's decorative, then doesn't someone have the argument that, well, if we decide that chain link galvanized fence is decorative, doesn't that give somebody something to stand on?
Yeah, it does. It doesn't bind you to making the same decision the next time, but it does give someone a more compelling argument.
Right, I'm gonna be honest with you, this town is kind of bad now, with that chain link fence, they gonna kill me. nothing. I promise you, this town looks like ass. And I doubt that fence is gonna make it look any worse than it already does.
I understand. But then the remedy is if you don't deem it to be decorative and approve it, the remedy then is to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and say, the ordinance doesn't allow us to do this, but we let us do it anyway. And here are our reasons why we think we should be given permission in spite of the fact that the rule says we can't. And that's a whole different process, and you don't, like, the Planning Commission doesn't have that role.
Right, but now, once they do that, does that again give everyone else a foot?
Well-
If the zoning board of appeals says, okay, we're gonna call it decorative, even though this board said that it wasn't, is that gonna set it?
Same thing like you said before, it gives the next person an opportunity to say, well, you did it. And the Board of Zoning Appeals has to say, we did for unique reasons that relate to that property, and we don't find that those same reasons relate to your property, so we're telling you no. It's supposed to be, and it's designed to be kind of a case-by-case decision based on unique circumstances each time a request is made.
Can I say something on their behalf, just because we've had problems in the past? I think at the planning and zoning, I feel like Becky is expected to know and do everything. And one thing that I see is that if this board would meet and go over all of their responsibilities, know what their responsibilities are, Becky knows what she's supposed to, she could have gave them a copy of this, or this would have saved them tons of money, all this meeting, they may have done something different. I think that the board should look at this, at what you guys should do to make this process better so this doesn't happen anymore to them, because we kind of got in that too. That whole...
Yeah, I won't deny, I mean, we talked about that when we first set up, when I first set up this board, that, you know, we don't have business every month, but you're right, everybody should do their due diligence, whether it's a meeting or not. No, I'd be the first one that's guilty. I don't know half of these ordinances in this town. It is what it is. But as someone that does something like this for a living, there's no way I can ever call that a decorative. It's just not decorative. It's not it. Nothing against you. Don't really care if the fence goes in or doesn't go in. But I can't personally tell you that that is decorative railing or decorative fence, because it's not. It's chain link fence. But personally, like I said, I don't think this town looks any worse than what it is. And my only thing is I don't want everybody in town thinking they can put a chain link fence in their yard. But at the same time, he's already put this stuff in, and I don't see what is going to kill us now. There's got to be, I think, and I apologize, I didn't get a chance to drive by your property, but you don't seem like you're going to have a bunch of, because you don't want to get me started with some of these homeowners in this town, what they do with their properties. It's terrible. But at the same token,
I got
to
4
maintain
kids,
it.
and my thing's make a nest egg for my kids to have something.
But I just want you to understand personally,
I understand where you're
cannot
coming
call
from.
that a decorative.
I can understand where you're
just
coming
can't
from.
do that. So if he needs to go to the zoning board of appeals, that's it, because I cannot call something what it's not, and it's not decorative for him.
Well, technically, we just need a motion if somebody in this room believes that could be decorative, and we vote on it as a board.
Yes.
And we know where Steve's going with his vote, so.
I'm just, it's not, you know, I feel for the guy. It's just, it'd be like me telling you that red is green, it's not.
Well, that's your color blind.
Right.
How do you change the town ordinance as far as that goes? I mean, I ain't trying to be difficult or nothing like that. I can run the fence all the way up to the street on my other side of the house and down and let the dogs run on that side. I don't see no difference in it from being on the front of the house or the side of the house being a corner lot.
Well, that's, which Lee has stated a couple times, if we don't approve it as a planning commission, then you, and I'm not sure the steps of asking to go in front of the board, zoning appeals.
It would be filing a petition for variance, and you'd have to give notice to the neighbors, and then they would have to meet, hold a public hearing, and you could present sort of the same argument you're making tonight. And if they decide that they believe that you ought to have your fence, they can grant you that permission, and then you would have it. But those are just the only choices. And again, I'm not saying whether it's fair or good or bad, or whether you ought to get it or not. That's just the way it works procedurally and legally.
however everything pans out, I'd like to do whatever I can to try to keep the fence where it's at, because it's gonna be most cost effective to me right now, because I don't have the finances. That's why I try to go to town hall and try to follow the proper steps to get everything before I purchase the fence, and make sure what I purchased was adequate for the town. So, now I guess if not, then I'm out $3,000 or out however much money it set me back to move it.
Yeah, you're, yes.
And this is where I'm on a teeter-totter, because it is chain link fence, it's not very decorative, and don't take this the wrong way, I don't mean any disrespect, but it is chain link fence, and Steve has a point. But I have to have a little respect, because you did go to town hall, you were trying to do it right, and I apologize for miscommunication, assuming whatever happened.
There's
But
communication on both parts, whatever, I'm not. I mean,
Yeah, so I'll make the motion to pass it as a decorative fence, just because you just didn't go out there and decide, I'm gonna build a fence today. And excuse my friend, but screw everybody else, I'm just gonna build this thing fence. So I have to show a little, I'm gonna make the motion that we consider it decorative, just because you tried. I mean, there was an attempt there. And you plan on keeping it mowed and clean and all that good stuff. And you said you have 2 bigger dogs. And this town is terrible about strays, because I know I don't have a fenced-in yard, and there's always one in my yard. And do you have any children?
4.
I'm in the same boat there, so I make a motion that we consider it decorative. And this is where somebody has to second.
Right.
Lord,
Well, I think the point of it is Jewel hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, I'm on this board, and I don't have, I didn't do my due diligence, I haven't sat down and looked at every ordinance, don't even know if I've ever been provided all the
Yes,
ordinances.
but I think that'd be great, I'm not opposed to that
Right.
happening, but I think, in a case like this, that doesn't address the underlying issue of, on a day-to-day basis, when people are doing business with the town, that they need to know what the ordinances say. And we need to be able to respond to questions. And the problem, like every other little town in the world, is, Morgantown can't afford to have a staff planner at $75,000 a year who sits here and answers 6 questions a year.
No, that's for sure.
And so, does there need to be some work done on the ordinances? There does. Could they be better? They certainly could be. But
How hard is it to get access to the ordinances if someone just wants to find them and look at them?
well, see, I mean,
They're available on the website.
They are.
They are, and believe me, I'm not unsympathetic to the predicament you're in, I'm not. And I think Becky does a great job, I really do. And-
I have no complaints.
But what happens in a lot of cases is a property owner will set about doing something, and they don't get the ordinance, and they don't read it, they don't look at the rules, and they want someone to give them an answer, because that's the simplest way to get from here to there. And then, you're really in a bind, because you guys spend a bunch of money. And now you feel a lot of pressure to say yes, because of the bind that they're in as a result of this. I don't think that's the town's fault, but I understand how it got to this point too. But if we make decisions based on granting relief because of mistakes, rather than helping to make sure the mistakes don't get made, that's not the best way to run the town. And it's really hard, because we don't have, Becky didn't get a professional planning degree from Ball State or Cornell or something like that, and decided she was going to set up shop here. She's doing the best she can, and gets, we don't have this happen a half a dozen times a year. We just don't. And so when you guys decide, let's go spend $50,000 and hire a planner to draft a new zoning ordinance for Morgantown, you can. It won't maybe cost that much, but it'll cost a bunch of money for an ordinance that we're looking at twice a year.
Right.
And so, really, what do you do? Do you spend that money to have a much, much better ordinance that we're going to refer to twice a year? Or do we muddle through and do the best we can and realize we're going to run into some of these problems, because we're a small town. We don't have enough money to deal with the problems we have, let alone go out and try to buy nice new ordinances and make things better for a handful of situations that arise. They're the best example. The Blevins have been the ones who have been subjected to this most recently, and they really did a great job. I mean, they had to submit a development plan, and you worked really hard, and it was confusing. But I think we got through it okay. And I think the town tried to be patient and cooperative to help. But could it have been easier? Yeah. On the other hand, if we had a staff planner working here 24 hours a day, or working here 40 hours a week, they might have an attitude where they would make things a lot more challenging than what the town tries to on property owners do. And we would probably have to charge pretty exorbitant fees to pay that person's salary. So it's just a hard issue. It really is.
And I don't want to be misconstrued. I don't have a problem with this guy's fence whatsoever.
I know you don't. I understand you. But you're trying to honor the process. I get it. I appreciate it.
So I mean, I'm just waiting for somebody to give him a second.
What can I do to make it decorative?
Pardon me?
What can I do with the
Well,
change?
let's not wander too far away from where we are now. We've got a motion.
Right.
We've got a motion to consider it decorative and approve it, and we're waiting on a second if there is one. That's what the Plan Commission has in front of it right now. So I guess the question is, did any other member want to second the motion that Steve has made? That's it. That's the way we move forward.
Well, I think it deserves a vote, I'll second.
Okay. So then we got a motion and a second on the motion to consider it decorative and approve it. And you can discuss that motion at this point. I'll let you take it back over.
Okay.
Just trying to help.
And this is before I call for a vote. Is there anybody that wants to, we see where Steve stands on this. I've voiced my opinion on this choice. Anybody have anything they want to discuss, opinion?
Go ahead, Roger. Is the fence no use to you if you don't use the front yard? Can you not go out the back or go down the side? I mean, if you abandon the post that you have right in the front?
My options were to go out to the street the other way. Basically, I'd like to open my door, let my dogs out, open my door, and my dogs come back in.
Essentially, we're looking at,
Right now, where I put the gate, you can see between the garage and the house, I already put that fencing gate up. My door is beyond that gate that comes out and goes into my garage.
we have an 80-pound 11-year-old trying to deal with a 106-pound dog. So to say, hey, child, take this dog out on a leash 10 feet to the gate to release it in the
Well,
yard.
just like the fence went around the back of the house, maybe you got a back
Corner
door.
lot.
Okay.
I mean, it's
Is
just
that
like
Adams
the
Street right
doors
there?
sit. I'm sorry.
Like Adams Street or something?
Adams and Mulberry.
Okay.
We're next door to the
Okay.
home that was recently torn down.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Well, I would think with that big a dog, you definitely want a fence. I'd want one around there.
I seen the fence going up the corner of the porch, is that correct?
Yes.
The front, yes.
Okay, that's how you gonna block the dogs from going?
I was going to see, what I was wanting to do is like the owner has across the street and having the decorative rail going around the whole entire walkout porch in between the pillars or whatever. And I was going to come after I got the fence up. My plan was actually to go around the side of the house and around the whole porch.
So
That's
currently,
my question is because they tell me how big this dog is. And I sold you the house, so I know how I know how tall that porch is, and that dog is
Away from the
off the
membership.
porch and over that fence right there in the corner.
and
You're
then,
gonna put a rail in there and stop that.
yes, and a gate on the second steps that go down the porch towards Adams Street. There will also be a gate there on the porch so the dog cannot.
So that's actually a double lot, that's actually the lot beside you right there, ain't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else? Almost. Crickets. Well, all in favor? I'm saying yes. We got 3. I'll say yes. 4. All right, all in not favor? Is it nay? 3, 4 nay? And I didn't count.
So say
I'm just not for galvanized, sorry, I'm just not for galvanized.
So that would be a no. So
Yeah,
nays have it. You'll have to go through the Board of Zoning Appeals and all that stuff, but
I can get a application, the variance act, I have templates and all of them for other places, and we can help guide you through that and give you the forms and all that stuff. Okay?
Yes, thank you. We would like to appeal, so.
okay. I think that's all the business.
So what I need to do with my existing fences have up right now?
Well, I don't think that, Tim, I would encourage the town not to take any enforcement action until you have your chance to appear before the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I just want to make sure.
Just leave everything the way it is. Tim, is that right with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it says unfinished. Well, that looks lovely.
But you could finish your fence everywhere but the front yard, correct?
Well,
You could
that's
totally-
That's all that's left.
There's no
That's
back door, no nothing to access to let them out in the lot.
The back door does not open properly, and it's accessed from the basement.
So the worst case scenario you'd have to do is different section of fence right in front of the house.
Yeah.
You can take the risk of finishing it in hopes that you're going to get a yes answer if you want to. That's up to you. I think what I'm saying is, I don't think the town's going to come out there and make you tear down what you have. Okay?
We're just saying it's not a decorative fence. So,
Right.
And if it's left up and I finish it, what happens if they say no? Or
If they would say no, then you'd have to take it down. You'd have to take the part in the front yard down.
only the front door.
And where, per se, in my empty lot, do you say the front yard begins? If I bring my fence back, how far back do I have to bring it?
I'll have to look north to see if we define the yard, but I would take that to mean the front building line.
Okay, well, and I'm just saying because I'm gonna have to take it all the way over the end, that my empty lot's gonna be the only part that's gonna have a fence on it.
I mean, I don't.
So I just want to know how far back that empty lot or define the front yard was, since there's no structure on it.
And me personally, I would think that where you come out your front door, that edge of your house, straight over to where Smith's used to live, I would assume that would be the front. And anything behind that would be a side yard. And I would think that is, and I haven't walked by there, but I'm guessing it's 10, 15 feet from your front door to the edge of that sidewalk. And I would think you probably wouldn't have a problem if it was back to the edge of your house, then it's all considered a side yard, in my opinion. You wouldn't
The
be.
front of the porch?
No,
The
or the
front of the
door,
house.
the front of the house, not the
Okay.
porch, the front of the door.
Okay.
The ordinance may define front yard or front setback, but I'm out of battery. And so, to answer, okay.
I don't know
Okay.
that, I don't think it does.
If it's an ask, let's just have a conversation about it,
Right.
either Tim or me, and we'll look at the ordinance and make sure we give you.
The only reason I'm asking is because I can probably, if I go to the front of the porch, I can probably achieve the same thing if I can get
Front yard means the yard between the street line and line generally parallel through the nearest point of the building. So it would be the line that lines up with the front of the houses along the street. Okay?
Okay, so the front of my porch would be acceptable.
To the nearest point of the building extending between side lot lines. Each yard fronting on the street is a front yard, so that a corner lot has two front yards. Front yard lot is not considered a front yard.
I would say.
My front porch is concreted and covered.
I'd say if it's a roof porch, it's.
I'd say that's the front, yeah.
Yeah.
I would.
Because I can bring, I'm just looking for the cheapest way out and meet everybody's happiness or whatever. I can bring it over to the side of my porch and then still get in my front of my porch with like the decorative railing or whatever and still let my dog out and it can jump out the side yard.
Yes. Yes, I would say.
We'll help. Jamie go through. Make sure we get everything. There's a bunch of definitions, that's what I mean.
Well, that's all the business, unless somebody else has any business.
I do. I need a definition for the buffer zone. Can somebody tell me what that is?
We're 2 miles, aren't we? Yeah. So we're 2 miles like a parallel or a line that tracks the town boundaries out 2 miles from the annexed area.
Okay, so if
But
something's
we're not in Johnson County.
If something goes on in the buffer zone and there's a property that is completely destroyed and is a mess and somebody has a problem with it, is that something that this board deals with?
That would be like a nuisance, but if it's a zoning violation, then yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. It's the one Morgan County's involved in.
Okay. We have, if it's the, is that the Oswald property?
Yes.
We have sent them a notice that
The one right before the greenhouse.
Dowley's old house.
there's a pending notice of violation out right now.
It's a mess.
So he is in violation?
Yeah.
It has been.
Yeah, and the Morgan County Erosion Board, he has to answer them now too.
Okay, good. So that is being.
So
Yeah.
well.
I have been asked 5
It's being
times,
dealt with.
and I have to look at it every day too.
But all this
Well,
work is part of it.
My business is right.
Some of it is for the county to enforce, and so if you wanna
chain link fence there.
call the county, I suppose, code enforcement should do that. We have some of it.
And then
They don't want
stop
it.
it
They
up.
don't say
We
the town's property.
we issued the permits for it and enforced the zoning, and I think what has been made clear to the owners, they're not gonna get any more permits. So they get it done this go around, or they're not gonna get another permit, and then they're gonna have to start undoing everything. And
What kind of time frame do they have on this now?
whatever the length of the current permit is.
August 8th
What's the permit
of
for?
this year.
What's the permit for?
Um,
What are they building or what's
A
going on?
pole
Which building?
barn, a temporary storage unit. August 8th, it expired this year.
For commercial, temporary storage.
And they can't get any commercial use.
No, he wanted to put wood in it. He said that would only keep the
I was also
temporary
asked
unit
about
for a
another
year.
property also.
Out there,
No, it's in town actually.
okay.
It's right next door to the funeral home. The roof has had tarp on it and is missing a big section of the roof and has been for quite some time.
So we do it.
The yard's a disaster. The house looks unsafe, and I didn't know if that was something that needs to be addressed. Great. It's directly west of the funeral home on Mulberry Street.
Yeah.
If you want to do an inspection.
It's had that tarp on it for over a year.
It's B's old house.
Bees on my house.
Okay.
Oh, it's been an issue for a while, and I don't know what's going on with it, but I've had 3 people ask me about that too.
Okay.
So what was the ordinance again, accepted by the town that I don't have to have a building permit or whatever for my front fence? It just has to be decorative.
What is it? It's the town zoning ordinance. It's the zoning
He's
ordinance.
asking, I think, and correct me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're asking what it actually states in the ordinance?
Yeah, well, what can, like, I can go from if I go from my galvanized chain link fence from the front of my house and go with wrought iron fence the rest of the way around.
It still has to be approved.
Well, yeah, it still has to be approved. The way the ordinance is written, it allows no fencing, and correct me if I'm wrong, somebody stop me if I'm going overboard here, unless it is brought to us and we consider it decorative.
I guess, because you asked that question, that just, it occurs to me, you have another option too. And that would be to change what fence you have in your front yard to what would be a decorative fence, and then come back to the plan commission and ask them to consider it decorative, like they tried to do tonight.
Yeah, I just don't know, not sound, it's kind of hit or miss. Am I going to spend another $2,000 on more fence and you guys not
Well, no, you're supposed to do it ahead of time. So,
I tried that. That was my whole thought behind everything.
but that's what the ordinance requires, so.
Right, I wasn't.
So if you would want to do that, instead of going to the Board of Zoning Appeals, if you would want to propose to the Plan Commission a decorative fence that really is more akin to what I think everyone has in mind, that would be another way to go at it.
And then, do I need a permit to put the fencing rails or whatever? It'd be like lattice work, or I'm not sure, it'd be, I guess, a wooden decorative fence going between my posts on my porch, going around my porch, kind of enclosing it. I mean, it's not going to enclose my porch.
If it's anything that's a permanent structure, it requires a permit, and
There's already foundation laid, the porch is concrete.
It's handrails or something.
Yeah, like a
Oh,
handrail
like a handrail.
type deal.
That doesn't consider,
Well, there's codes to the handrails, but you don't necessarily need a permit for it, so.
Okay. I wanted to make sure before I did that to my porch, to make sure I didn't need a permit or buy a permit or pay for. Because I know when we lived in Trafalgar, the people across the street built their house and it's still sitting there because they can't live in it because they didn't get all the proper permits and stuff, so. I just wanted to make sure I'm on the right page and not doing, I guess, go through the same process again.
What our ordinance says is a building permit for any alteration to the condition of land and or structures, including construction, alteration, or additions to buildings, driveways, parking areas, signs, drainage areas, lighting, swimming pools, or any other permanent improvements. So I think we require more. We require permits in more instances than what a lot of people realize. And so, and I think if you were told you don't need a permit, I think the town needs to stand by the answer you were given, and I think it will. But I think going forward, if you're going to do something more, probably the best way is to describe to Tim or submit in some written form, here's what you plan to do. Do I need a permit for this? So that question can be presented to Tim to answer, because ultimately that lands on him.
Okay.
Okay?
So basically, kind of draw up a sketch and present it to him to show him.
Yeah, or just even a narrative description of what you have in mind.
Okay.
Because we really don't ever want, we don't want to mislead anybody, but it's going, there's some mistakes.
Well,
like I say, it's a language that we only speak a little bit every year. But there's not that much that goes on in a town that's this old.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Never had to deal with anything like this before, my first kind of rendezvous.
And I don't think anybody, I guess I'm speaking for everybody, I don't think anybody questions that you're trying to do it right, and I think everybody appreciates that. And my guess is ultimately there will be leniency afforded you because of that, but
okay.
There are just different functions that different committees have.
Right. Okay.
And I'm not trying to tell you what to do, it's but if I would at least try. I mean, we just go by there on the way here, but as far as you got, I'd at least try.
I really don't have the money to try to retry.
I go for it.
Well, there is stipulations, there's $100 fee to file the variance, there's certified letters that have to go out to property
That's still a whole
owners.
lot cheaper than tearing that out and re-concreting all those posts
I was just
and
making
doing
sure
all that extra work.
Yeah.
that was understood, you know what I mean, it's not like, you just
Yeah.
write something up and.
All the
No,
posts,
that's what I mean.
I gotta buy new
You're right.
posts unless, there ain't no way I'm gonna be able to pull that concrete and everything out unless I dig big massive holes in my yard.
I got a fork truck.
I got fork trucks, I got gantries, and
If you're going to apply
that's
to a
gonna tear my
variance,
yard up. It's not gonna do me no benefit.
we'll walk you through that and make sure it's clear and give you the forms and all that.
Okay.
Okay.
When, after the meeting, or do I need to come down to town hall?
No, not after me, because I don't have with us.
Okay, where do I
Just,
just,
you communicate with Becky and you can pick it up at town hall.
okay,
Okay, with instructions on how to do it.
okay.
And not a word of advice, don't show up at 8:59 in the morning and go, hey, where's my papers? It's not gonna happen that fast. But if she knows about it, Lee knows about it, so we'll get it as soon as we can, okay?
Okay, it'd be a few days anyway before I even have a chance to make it over there with work and everything, so.
Okay, any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a second motion. We have a second. All in favor?
I can see that. Shoot me.